All right, it's on recording.
I start.
Yeah.
So all these while, what happens? Just recap from one factor to two factor to multiple factor, seven factor. Then intelligence is a whole different thing. It has three components, three dimensionals of kinesthetics, operations.
Auditory and
No.
Oratory, intrapersonal,
Operations, contents, and products
spiritual,
of Guilford,
mental.
and there are 9 separate intelligences that Guilford Gardner named. Finally, what Sternberg says is that he agrees with the first two intelligences of Gardner, true, but he tells that the next 7 intelligences fall into 3 categories, which he has given 3 theories, 3 sub-theories of intelligence. That is the Triadic theory of intelligence. According to Sternberg, I was finding a little bit, it was a task for me to find this sentence. Knowledge is having the right answer and intelligence is asking the right question. So intelligence is measured in terms of how you, make yourself ready to face your world, ready to face your surrounding, or how challenging you prepare yourself to face, to deal with day-to-day tasks, or to deal with any high order, low order, any task for it matter. How do you prepare yourself? The process of preparation is what makes you intelligent. That's what Sternberg argued. So going forward, the definition that he gives is the cognitive ability to learn from experience, to reason well, to remember important information, and to cope with the demands of daily living. Especially the last part, to cope with the demands of daily living, is what makes Sternberg's theory unique from other theories. So he is the first person who took into account the social and contextual factors. So he, the earlier tests, what they did was they used psychometric measures and statistical measures like factorial analysis to measure intelligence, and they concentrated more on the structure of intelligence alone. So what Sternberg did is he gave a cognitive approach. He said that the process of intelligence is more important than the end product of the intelligence. As that Ryan said, asking the right question is intelligence. So that is the approach of Sternberg. So he says previous theories are correct. It's not like they're incorrect, but just they're incomplete. So the theories are correct but incomplete. He did not disagree with the previous ones. He just he was just smart and he said you haven't completed your theories properly, and you haven't given a composite approach to your theories. So that's what he said. So giving a brief introduction of Sternberg, I haven't included that in my PPT. He was an American psychologist and a psychometrician, and he graduated from Yale University. Then he also has jumped and done his multiple degrees and researches from multiple universities, and has been a professor in multiple universities. Some of them are Stanford, Oklahoma, Tufts University, and some university in North America, South America, Heidelberg's in Germany, Cambridge University. So there have been multiple high standard, very well known, reputed universities that he's been a part of. So Sternberg's theory is a comprehensive theory because it takes into account the social and contextual factors apart from the human abilities. So as I mentioned here, it also concentrates on practicality and the creativity, and he tells those two are equally important as that of the human abilities and the analytical abilities. So initially only logical reasoning, problem solving, only those were considered as qualities of intelligence. He says even creativity and the practicality of applying that logical knowledge into something, that is also intelligence. You have to consider them equally important. So that was his argument. So it's called triarchic. There are three major sub-theories in this Sternberg's theory. So he's also famous for triadic theory of love. Okay, so there is Sternberg. Both are triadic. He is very possessive with triangles and three elements, I believe. So everything has three elements, mostly, whatever his theories are dealt with. That's one easy way to remember Sternberg as a whole picture for our entire psychology life or psychology study life that we have. To remember Sternberg in a good way is triarchic. So mostly triarchic theories are of Sternberg, the major ones that we use in a day-to-day life. So he says these three components or these three sub-theories are interrelated, they are independent, they are interrelated, and they are the abilities themselves. So they are the process and the abilities themselves. They can work independently or they can work together. There is interaction between them. As a component, they are separate, yes. But if you take intelligence as a whole, there is some interaction between these. So analytical intelligence are the mental steps. Let's keep analytic and logic is always, we can use it as synonyms or some cues to remember. And wherever there is analytical reasoning and logic, you can use both of them: analyze, evaluate, compare, contrast. These are some common words that you can immediately think of when you think of this word analytical, especially in cognitive psychology. So that is the immediate words that you can remember, and it's good. So that creative intelligence. So here there are two names, synonyms that Sternberg gives for each of these sub-theories. So analytical is also componential, because see, he has there's a highlighted word components here. Yeah, components. So analytical intelligence is also componential intelligence or componential sub-theory. Creative intelligence, here they have used experiential intelligence or experiential sub-theory. It has to do more with your exposure and experience of the new knowledge or the new stimuli and how you get used to it. Practical intelligence is how you get changes in yourself and in your environment to apply your knowledge that you have learned here. So sometimes the knowledge, you want to apply your knowledge somewhere, but your environment or your thought process or anything is not suitable for that moment. So there are few process that you follow that where you can practically implement it, execute your knowledge. So that is practical intelligence. That is also called context. So you have to remember these words. These are you can also tell contextual sub-theory or contextual intelligence or practical intelligence, analytical, componential, creative, experiential. So these words are very important, the combination of these words for each of them. So what is analytical intelligence? It's more to do with problem solving, analyze, evaluate, more to do with your cognitive process. So what happens here is there are three, I don't know if I've included that. There are three sub-components. I don't think so I've included that, I'm sorry. But anyway, I'll explain them. So there are three components, as I said, analytical, the word immediately that comes is components. So there are three components in the sub-theory, which explains the essence of this subtheory. They are meta components, performance, and knowledge acquisition. So what is meta components? Meta components are those higher order processes which helps you to organize, which guides you how, where, and it helps you in selecting the cognitive process, to organize a cognitive process. Analytical has all to do with your cognitive process alone. So you don't have the external world concept in analytical, it's just within you. So what you do is, these are executive functions, higher order executive functions. These are like guiders. It guides you to to choose which cognitive process you need to you need to have, or you need to choose to convert the short-term memory into long-term memory, something like that. So this is like a teacher. Meta components are like teachers. Just a second, I just I'll come back to meta components later. Really sorry. So it's all to do with problem solving, reasoning. So when you consider a behavior, these specifies the potential set of mental processes that underlies a behavior. So you're thinking before acting. Yes.
Is meta components, performance, and knowledge acquisition components.
Yes, it's there in the further slide. I thought I haven't included it, but yeah, it's there. It's there.
Okay. Shall I put it in the chat if you want?
No, it's there. I'm coming to that. It's a part of my slide. Sorry.
Okay.
So the thinking before acting, that thinking is what is analytical theory or componential theory. Next is creative or existential theory. Sorry, experiential. Creative or experiential theory. So, here you get the concept of external world. When you are executing a behavior, where to execute it, and how to execute it, not how, where to execute it, and yeah, to an extent how also. So here that external world concept comes in for the first time. So it basically depends on your exposure for new knowledge and your experience with that knowledge. So you have a stimulus A, and you have been exposed to stimulus A for like 10 times. So when you get the stimulus for the 11th time, then you're so well versed with it that you don't even need to think that you're getting exposed to stimulus A. You will already give an response at within fraction of seconds. So that is experiential. So it has to do a lot with experience. And it's practical. Practical is, it addresses the changes that you make to execute your behavior or execute your knowledge. For example, I have learned dance. I have been exposed to stage performances, and that has been an experience for me. So what happens, suppose I have to perform in a temple, but temple does not have stage in particular. So I choose a space inside temple, or I ask the organization to clear that space, which is maybe leveled. I select that space and I change few steps. I cannot slide in those spaces because it's usually rough things. So the changes that you make within yourself and your immediate environment, selection, adaptation, these things come later. So it has to do with modification of your behavior to adjust or to implement your knowledge in the environment. So that is practicality. Here, and this is the relationship between the behaviors in a given task and the amount of experience of the individual in that given situation or task. So the practicality of the knowledge. So Sternberg hypothesizes that intelligence relates to and is demonstrated in three different aspects, whatever we just saw, but internal world of information, that is componential analytical, experience and past learning, that is experiential, the external world of adapting to, shaping and selecting real world environments, that is practical. Coming to the components of the analytical things, there are three components. I have changed the order slightly so that I can, string them together in form of a story. So knowledge acquisition components. Knowledge acquisition components are simply can tell the capacity to learn, learning capacity, how you gain and store knowledge in your short-term memory is just that, not even going to long-term memory. How you learn and store it in your short-term memory. Short-term memory is also very important before it goes to long-term memory. Only if the stimulus is very strong or the way you have perceived the stimulus is impactful, only then you can get the short-term memory into long-term memory. So that is knowledge acquisition components. Just remember it's got to do with the learning capacity. So that is knowledge acquisition. Next is performance components. So once you have gotten a stimulus to or information, a chunk of information to your knowledge acquisition, your short-term memory, then you have to choose a process or choose a strategy where you convert your short-term memory into a long-term memory. That is, you perform a cognitive process to convert your short-term memory into a long-term memory. So that is a performance component of the analytical theory. So it has to do with how you encode the stimulus, how you hold the information, how you make calculations, how you perform mental calculations, how do you compare between the old stimulus and the new stimulus. For example, multiplication is part of BODMAS. So I just to conclude that multiplication is a part of BODMAS, you need to execute or retrieve your old information of multiplication and compare it with the new information of BODMAS. So you perform a cognitive task. So that performing a task to store a short-term memory and convert it into a long-term memory is performance component. Now, how do you decide which cognitive process you use is done by meta components. So there are three components here, knowledge acquisition, performance, and meta components. Meta components is a teacher. Now, teacher guides the student to do a task, to learn something. So meta components is a teacher, it guides the performance component to get these knowledge acquisition component into a long-term memory. So I hope now you got that relation. So meta components is like a higher order. That is, meta components like the DVOS. It is actually important for you to learn a stimulus and convert into a long-term memory. So that's with componential. That easy it is. So in performance component, you compare, you observe, you compare, you by heart, you repeat. All these are some of the basic, layman techniques that we use to convert a short-term memory into long-term memory. In knowledge acquisition, it's just to do with how you perceive a stimulus. Meta components, it's like a bridge. Meta components is also like a bridge between these. It tells you what component you have to convert into long-term memory, what component is worth converting into long-term memory. So it's like a bridge, it's like a connection between the other two components. So that is analytical or componential theory, sub-theory of Sternberg's theory of intelligence. Moving on, next is experiential theory or creative theory. Creative, you get creativity only when you have enough exposure and experience in one aspect of knowledge. So creativity is it's like one of the end products of a very skilled, well-versed knowledge base. It's like that. So here you have two sub-theories, which is novelty and automation. Novelty is when you are exposed to a stimulus for the very first time. You are trying your own ways, trying new ways, to get that knowledge, or you're trying new ways to solve the problem. So, for example, the first time I am put on a stage to perform, I am dealing with stage fear. I am dealing with, so much attention on me. I am very scared. So, I am actually getting used to all these. These are stimulus. I am watched by many people. I am on the elevated stage. All these are, this is the first time experience. So anything that has to do with the first time exposure of a new knowledge is novelty. Why you tell novelty is you find your new ways, you find your ways of dealing with it. Maybe you have been doing math for a long time, but just because there is no a plus b whole square, just because there is a plus b plus c whole square, just because you have that c extra, you're trying to find a new way to solve that. You can also do that a plus b whole square is equal to b plus c whole square, something that I might be wrong, just giving an example. So just adding a new component for your existing knowledge is also a new stimulus, new knowledge for you. So any new thing that comes in your way is novelty because you are finding new ways to deal with it. So I have highlighted new. The first time exposure is is to do with novelty, dealing with novelty. Next is automation or automatizing automation. Keep it simple, automation. Automation is professionals. So it does not require extra efforts at all. You can tell from A to Z because you're used to it. You're being experienced by telling that like 1,000 million times. Or you can you can go to your college because you have been following the same route to go to the college for days and years. So something like that, something that you have been repeatedly exposed to and that does not require any extra efforts is automation. And you can, by in automation, the good thing is you can also multitask and learn a parallel task because you don't need extra efforts. So automation is performing one experienced task very well as the ability to multitask, as well as the ability to learn parallelly because you're so well versed. So this is automation. A good example is our mothers, they cook. And suppose at least in Hindu Orthodox families, they also chant while cooking. So what is chanting? They have, heard those prayers or chanting mantras for a long number of years. So it is already there in their mind. No cooking. She might be trying a new recipe, but she is telling that in a good flow. She is also learning a parallel new task, which is a new recipe. And she is also multitasking because she is listening to what we speak, also listening to the family chit chat. She's also telling the mantras. She is also, concentrating on this has to be put after this. This ingredient has to be put after this. So this is they're very skilled. So they're skilled at cooking, which helps them to explore more in the cooking field. So that is automation. So we are done with componential. There's a metacognitive, a metacomponent, performance, and knowledge acquisition. In experiential, there is novelty and automation. We are done with two. Next, it's contextual or practical intelligence, the practicality. Here, in this also, the experiential, you have interaction of your behavior with the external world, true. But here, there is more interaction. You decide what kind of environment environment you want to apply your knowledge in. So what happens here? There are three sub things. These are called street smarts. You know, my all-time favorite is Sherlock Holmes. He knows which question to ask to whom in order to get the desired answer. So that is shaping. He shapes the, I'll come back to that. So what is this? One thing is you can change yourself first to adjust to the immediate environment. For example, it's cold. I'm wearing this sweater. I'm adjusting my body temperature to the external body temperature by wearing extra layer of clothes. And I'm entering a new college. So I'm adjusting my moods. I'm adjusting my routine to the timing of the new college. So I am changing some aspects and some components of my behavior and my knowledge to adjust to the external environment. So to better adjust to the external environment, you change within oneself. Where is my cursor? Oh my God. Yeah, you change within oneself to better adjust to the environment. That is called adaptation. Adapting to one's environment. Adaptation. Literally, you adapt to new environment by making changes in yourself. Then is shaping. What is shaping is you change the environment to suit you. For example, Ritika or I or whoever takes classes here, we mute everyone else so that you all can listen to the speaker. So I'm changing the environment aspect of it so that it suits my way of presenting my knowledge better. So any change that you make in the environment is shaping. What is selection is, you choose an environment where you can apply your knowledge. For example, these birds take up migration. Whenever there is cold in one region, they migrate to another region, another bird sanctuary, so that they can hatch their eggs. Again, when it gets cold here, then they migrate back to another environment to grow their younger ones. So they select the environments. Selection of environment is always external. So you select the environment to replace the previous one, which is unsatisfying, to meet your present goal. So you select the environment. For example, as I said, I selected a different, ground structure, the texture of ground inside the temple where I can perform. My performance is already fixed. I know what kind of steps I do in dance. Are there splits? Are there jumps? Are there slides? Or are they just hard, firm footworks? Depending on that, I have taken a tour inside the temple and I have selected a place which suits my already preset performance. So selection is important. Especially this theory, the practicality of your knowledge, the adaptation, shaping, selection, this is what made Sternberg's theory, very unique. Like this, everyone was so shocked. At least the psychologists and psychometricians, I'm telling, to get this approach of theory to intelligence. So he's telling intelligence is there, but you adapt your intelligence, you shape your intelligence, and you select your environment where you want to execute or show off your intelligence. So this part, most of them couldn't agree. They still tell intelligence is just within here. Yes, true. Sternberg did not disagree with anyone. He said, yes, you're right, but I'm just adding on to it. So this was one major breakthrough in intelligence theory. Though Gardner gave 9 different intelligences, he did not tell how you use your intelligence. He said these are the qualities of these types of intelligence. But Sternberg was the first person who gave the breakthrough, like intelligence is also measured on how you choose to execute it, how you choose to express your intelligence. That was one thing. So coming back to the adaptation, this was one of the primary concepts where Piaget and other psychometricians considered. Like when Anju was taking, there were 24 psychologists who gave 24 definitions, and among them they came up to like some 13 common components factors, which were almost common in these 24 psychologists. So one of them was adaptation. So adaptation was still there, but they did not consider majorly as part of their theory. So it was still analytical, logical, still there in Spearman, Thorndike, and all. So
If you see, adaptation becomes a very important part in corporate, especially at
yes,
work. Companies
yes,
look for people who are more adaptable, who are ready to adapt, or this skill is
true,
important.
true.
So that
I
is
agree.
it.
Yes. So when it comes to shaping, Vygotsky and dynamical systems theorists focus on this aspect of intelligence. So shaping is what? Altering the environment to suit your to suit your needs. That was shaping one's environment. So I assume that Vygotsky, and I don't know what exactly this dynamical system is. Sorry, I couldn't look through it. Yes, so there is some previous evidence for Sternberg to prove that, see, these people also have agreed to my theory in a certain way back then. What in summarizing Sternberg theory, he hypothesizes that intelligence as a set of skills identified through research in cognitive psychology. So it is, skill is where you are well versed with anything. You are skilled enough to choose which technique you want to use to convert your short-term memory to long-term memory. You're skilled enough to act immediately when you have been presented with the stimuli for the nth time. You're skilled enough to immediately, quickly choose. Also, I think I don't know, one important component that could be added is the quickness of implementing your intelligence. So how quick you implement, how quick you select, or how quick you change or adapt is equally important as, applying your intelligence. I mean, it's my personal perspective. I don't know if there are already that quickness aspect in some other theory, but yes. Then it expands the definition of intelligence from merely adapting to one's environment to modifying the environment or selecting another. So this was one important adaptation, shaping, and selection. Remember these three. He suggests intelligence consists of complementary process of critical and creative thinking as well as common sense. These were actually our mothers, our ancestors, our grandparents. They are well versed and skilled enough what they want, what they don't want. No, they are mere differentiating between the do's and wants, yes and no, is common sense. So he says this is actually common sense that I have explained. So he made it that simple also. Suggests intelligence should be measured as part of the learning process while the learner deals with novelty and automatizes responses. So he, as part of learning, he says you can be well versed only if you have found your own new way, own novelty way of dealing with a new situation for a number of times, and you have automatized your way of response over the nth time. And adaptive behavior checklist. This was one unique thing of, he also gave a checklist of these are the things that you can choose to adapt. These are the things that you can, how did I'm not getting that word. It's just like easy ways of adapting yourself, something like that, which had subheadings of social competence, practical problem solving ability, verbal ability. So the qualities that you can imbibe in adapting your behavior to your external environment. He is talking about this adaptive behavior. So when it comes to adaptation, it's just, at least with respect to intelligence, it's you're just changing this to suit your environment better. So that's why you have these verbal ability, practical problem solving ability, social competence. So these are cognitive things that he talks about in his adaptive behavior checklist. Then coming to evaluation, Sternberg offers an approach. He tells that educators, teachers, students must take this study seriously to understand the system of learning and teaching better. Then he also focuses on skills rather than categorization, classification of people. So Gardner, Guilford, they all categorized people based on different types of intelligence, and they classified people like I am more intelligent in bodily kinesthetic, musical intelligence. I am musically intelligent, whereas Praharsh is logically intelligent, or Seema is spatially intelligent. Or Hritika is naturally or existentially intelligent. Instead of categorizing, he said the skills that you develop to become intelligent in any aspect, the skills is important. How you develop the skills is important. However, we must remember that abilities differ among individuals and we must allow ample time for development. The time is the factor that we need to consider to be skillful in anything. So going on further, he views emotions as distinct from intelligence. The concept of emotional intelligence came much later, and he tells emotional intelligence has nothing to do with the actual intelligence. So he views that intelligence itself is different, the traditional intelligence is different, and emotional intelligence is different. So emphasizes process of intelligence rather than the domains of intelligence. As I said, the process of how you become intelligent and skillful is important than which domain you're intelligent at. So Sternberg very merely cared about whether you are that intelligent, but he concentrated on how you became intelligent at that, the process, the journey of your intelligence. So the criticism he faced was unempirical. It had very less numerical, measuring abilities or measurable proof to support his theory. And people like Gottfredson, Gottfredson, it's there in the book. Gottfredson. These people said practical intelligence is just a mere set of skills used to cope, but it is not the traditional intelligence. Of course, it's not the traditional intelligence. Sternberg, in spite of telling your theory is correct but incomplete, and I'm just expanding your theories, people still said practical intelligence, they're just telling A is equal to small a in a different way. For argument's sake, they had just been telling the same things. So he also said practical intelligence is a set of skills, but they tell it's just a set of skills and it has nothing to do with the process. So it's not the traditional intelligence. For them, traditional intelligence was just the logical and analytical intelligence. So that's why the argument was there. So difficulties in measuring unconventional abilities. So how will you exactly measure, I have chosen the visual map technique to convert my short-term memory to long-term memory. How will you measure that visual mapping? Whether it was, superly skillful, less skillful, or how will you measure the journey of you becoming skillful? That is something that you cannot measure. Of course, unempirical and this non-measuring components of these abilities go hand in hand. You cannot measure. He did not have the measurable proofs to support his theory. That is one of the criticism. Then creativity as practical intelligence. Creative is also a product of high intelligence score and not a cognitive ability. Same thing that they argued. Yesterday also, while telling Gardner theory, I think Umashankar someone asked, how do you explain creative people are more artistic? So I said there are creative people in all other domains as well. So how do you analyze creativity? Creativity is when when you're extremely skillful in something, you become creative. So these people argue that the product of high intelligence score is creativity, and it's not a cognitive ability. Creativity is to do more with skill, and it's not the cognitive ability. So these were the criticism faced by Sternberg for his theory, and then we are done. Any questions?
Hey, it almost looked like this guy got everybody else's theories together and put them to,
Yeah.
I don't know, somehow it was not very, maybe I'm too tired today or what, but it was not as interesting as yesterday's, the way, I don't know, it looked like, so basically what I understood, correct me if I'm wrong, is this guy says that intelligence is three things. One is at a cognitive level, second is at an experiential level, from being a novice from being a newcomer at something to being highly becoming an expert.
Skill.
And the third thing he's saying, the ability to adapt. The quicker you do, the
Correct.
faster you do. Is
Yes.
this all he's saying? Because he's saying so many things. I either I'm too confused or I'm too tired. But net, this is what I understood.
No,
but just
that's right, Seema.
Yeah.
What you said is right. The thing is, we are concluding, we are like those convergent production of Guilford's operation.
Yeah, everything. It looks like a hodgepodge of everything. I don't know.
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
I'm too tired to understand. And one thing about Vygotsky, that is something I remember reading about. Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist, and he it was all about adaptation. I think you got it up when you did this. So what he said was that there was a very interesting theory. He talked about three concurrent circles. Okay. So the innermost circle, there's a middle circle and outermost circle. Okay. Now, outermost circle says that what is it that I cannot do? Okay. The middle circle says that what I can do with a little help. And the innermost says what I can do. Right. So the idea is to move from what I cannot do to what I can do using a bit of help. And how he explained it is when a child learns to do cycling, right? So first this child does not know how to cycle. With the help of the father first day holds the child, takes him further to a certain point, and then next day onwards holds a little bit less, and so on and so forth. By the fourth day, the child is absolutely independent. So the whole idea is how, from not knowing how to bicycle to knowing how to do it, and in between the circle of little help. So these are all the ways in which people adapt. So this is what Vygotsky's theory was. So
no, I totally get the comparison.
Right.
Yes, it's just basic thing explained in more technical terms. That's it.
Yeah, too technical. Yeah, no, I'm going to flunk in this paper, okay? Because too much in this.
No. If you actually read through it once, there are some common set of words which are repeated in every single theory.
Right. So I think it's not like he said anything new. He just got everything together and said something. It seems like.
If you remember, he says the theories that preceded him are correct but incomplete. He is just telling the process of intelligence is important, not rather than the intelligence itself. That's the only new thing that made Sternberg's theory unique. That's it.
So one of the things, Soundarya, if I may add, one of the things I noticed with what Sternberg is saying, I think he's doing a little bit of reverse engineering. Like you said, he's focusing more on the process of development of intelligence, right? So he's coming the other way around, where other people are trying to measure intelligence. He says, what are the aspects that develops intelligence? So if you miss out on adapting to the environment or context, then you are not accounting for everything that makes up for intelligence. So he's adding those as a part of process of development of intelligence, and then he's reverse engineering and saying these are also important when you're measuring somebody's intelligence.
True, but what's funny, he also says tells that this the contextual or the practical intelligence is just common sense. I'm just explaining the common sense in detail. If you remember my slide, best example is we all think that our grandparents, some of us at least, think our grandparents, the stereotypical grandparents of village, are not intelligent. Why do we say they are not intelligent? Because they are not analytically intelligent. We are, we are put our legs in both ways. We agree with Gardner, we agree with Spearman. Like Prakash said, he likes Spearman's G factor a lot. The Spearman's G factor is our grandparents. And we agree with Gardner a lot because we are intelligent in different domains. So Sternberg is that he is that boat actually. He has a boat here also. He has a boat here also. He's agreeing that he is just re-explaining things. That's funny part of his theory. Is just telling ABC is equal to CBA.
Yeah, so if you look at it, most of the time we say, look, this is common sense. Anybody can think about this. This is not a major intelligence thing. But I think what he's subtly saying is application of common sense is also important. It's not saying it's common sense, but application of that, not everybody does it. So if somebody is told to do something a certain way, they do not use common sense, but they get it done. That is the difference, right? The implicit difference between that person and this person. So I'm just trying to correlate to see what Sternberg is. I mean, from where is he coming?
Yes. True. And I mean, just that the previous psychometricians did not mention those things in the theory, and the fact that he mentioned that in detail and made it a major part is what made his theory unique and breakthrough. That's it. Prahash has got something to tell. Go on.
Yeah, I had a thought. What to add to what Seema said, right? From I can't to I can, and with the help of somewhere in the middle to add to that what Kritika said in a corporate world. So when you actually enter a corporate world, you might be in a totally different environment. It will be difficult to adjust there. After some time, even some time, you find a couple of friends who are little here and little there. Somehow wavelength matches. Then you get to the entire team, right? So it some sounds like they were in the same lines, and I agree with that. The same parallel lines. And one thing is, in such an environment, uh, common sense is not an easy thing to grasp. It's not like you are very obvious on what should be a certain acceptable, let's say, action in a certain situation in a new place. What is common sense? Like if you do something and people see that, okay, this is something good to do. He's not making an idiot of himself, right? Something like that. So it's not that easy to figure out what is common sense. It's not as, it's probably, I feel that it's undervalued at times. It's not very obvious to see what is the output of common sense. Particularly in a new place, right? You don't know how to handle a situation.
But as much as I understood this theory, it talks more about so if we go back to Spearman and Thorndike and Guilford, everything is all good, but they never talk about socio-cultural aspects.
Yes.
So here it's like we were talking only about psychology, but here we are talking about social psychology. The Sternberg is more about how do you behave, how do you think in a socio-cultural aspect. So when you are with the people, there are problems. How do you solve that problems, or how do you decide that this is what you want to do? So lot of things which is more involved in socio-cultural environment, and that's why he's talking a lot about adaptation, because when you are in a social environment, it's important that you adapt. If you don't adapt, then you will be ignored by the society in one way, and no one of us would like to be ignored. We always adapt. We try to follow rules and regulation, whatever it is, so that we can be a part of them, again from nowhere to where we belong. So again, in the middle is something, what Prahash gave example is, you can use the social aspects of it. We have a culture, we have what do you call it? There are people whom we don't know, to be started knowing with, could be religion, could be society, could be anything, and then we become friends with them. And when we became friends or known, how did we adapt? The whole process of adaptation, plus how did then he also talks about how analytical we are, how creative we are, and what was the third one? There was one more.
Experiential, practical.
Practical we are. So we are using these three. We are actually using it in our life. We are not using Spearman's G factor. We are using Sternberg's theory. That's how we are connected. That's how we are performing what we have to perform in our day-to-day life. Like what Soundarya talks about, how our moms cook, they do multitasking, but they do whatever they want to. Same as with us, we have 100 things to do, but everything is going on. We all are doing multitasking, and we all adapted, we all are creative in our own ways, we are practical in our own ways, through experimentation, through adaptation, through novelty, what we talk about, this meta components, performance, acquisition, novelty, automation, adaptation, selection, shaping. We all are using it in our life. It's just you have to sit down and think of it, and you will understand what we are doing right now.
Yeah, I think Ritika is right. So tell me something. So whatever intelligences we've been learning, is it like in a sequence that this evolved and this is where we are today?
It's
So that's
No,
why I
no,
think,
no,
split it into
no. They are all different.
chapters.
oh,
They
they're
are
all
all
different
different.
times, is it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they
Okay.
are
But
different times.
but we are learning in
uh,
sequence.
1923 and before that.
Hmm.
This was 1985. Actually, Sternberg and Gardner were contemporaries. So that's
Okay.
what it tells. The first two of Gardner's nine multiple intelligences are okay. They fall into analytical. But the next seven are more to do with the process, because eventually over time you choose to become, with your exposure and experience, you choose to become intrapersonally or interpersonally or existentially or spatially
Hmm.
intelligent. So the process, the context, how you do, how you use your common sense, where you use your common sense, these are the things that Sternberg said.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
And
little
she's
thought.
right. This is the socio-cultural theory, like the same
Yeah.
with Vygotsky. These are all social cultural, where how society, why the environment, how it has an impact on a
Us,
person's intelligence.
yeah, exactly. These are all under any socio-cultural. I'm sure there must be more theories which we're talking about socio-culture, because we are
Yeah. Yeah.
beings, right? So we just
Yeah.
started with one. This is how intelligence has gone among
Yeah,
psychologists.
I think we'll have more of it. Yeah, Vygotsky was a really good one, actually. There's a
So
lot
these
to it
should
in
be
this.
there in our next. There's still we have next unit. It's still Guilford, Gardner, Stenberg, Vernon.
So one little thought here. There is a little thing I remember from Jordan Peterson. In one of his experience from a clinical psychiatrist, one of the world famous psychiatrists we have, clinical. He says about an experiment he did in teaching a low IQ person how to fold a paper so that it will fit into an envelope. So you are supposed to send out envelopes and you have a bigger A4 sheet. You want to fold it 3 times, right? And you have to put it into the envelope and put the stamp on it and send it across. A very simple task. Any tapal department, postal department person will be doing it like just like that. He says his difficulties in training this person on how to fold, because if you fold a little extra, the envelope will be like, it won't go into the envelope. If you fold it too small, then it will be like too much of gap on the sides. And he says this person was having such a difficulty in learning it, and that's one probably something that we'll miss if the person does not have that kind of IQ. um, See, when we evaluate intelligence, we are actually talking about people who are attending classes like this, who are capable of handling intelligence to some certain level. But there are people like that, and it's not a small percentage. A huge percentage of people like that out there who are not capable of handling such simple tasks. It's not creative, it's not adaptive, it's not making any sense practically.
I disagree. They are definitely adaptive, because when you teach also, they are learning, no? They're getting exposed
But
to
what,
something new.
after training him for months, he still
Yeah.
could not learn that skill. That skill could
Oh,
not be learned by that person after training for
so
months, not days, months. So there are
so
people
you're
out there
telling
who are just
there
not, just like you don't have a leg and you can't run, just like that you don't have intelligence, so they can't do it. As simple as that.
so you're telling there has to be some G factor to learn and be peaceful. Is that what you're telling, Raj?
I don't remember the conclusion of it. Just that yeah, it might not be that. Again, that's my viewpoint, but I'm not using this to support that because I don't think that was a context.
Actually, what Prahesh said is a valid point, and it has connection to what Ritika was telling also, because when we do actually assessment for children for intellectual disability, okay, is when we doubt that they have a disability or they are functioning at a cognitively lower level, we just don't run an IQ test. We do a test on adaptive behavior. So for example, like a child might know that pencil is for writing and a sharpener is for sharpening the pencil. But a child with a low IQ may not, if given a unsharpened pencil and a sharpener, may not think that, okay, and is asked to do some writing work. He may not think, okay, I can use the sharpener and sharpen the pencil and write. He might just sit there and say, no, I cannot write with this pencil. That's an adaptation. So when we to call somebody, especially in special education and children with difficulties, adaptive behavior along with an IQ test is done to see whether to label, I mean, we don't label to say whether the child has a disability or not. So I think Sternberg's emphasis on that adaptive behavior really has relevance to our current day education and understanding of how people function and adjust to environment. You may have low IQ, but as you said, Soundarya, the practicality, he knows, okay, this is what I need to do. So, or I can't drink from a big tumbler, maybe I can pour it into a smaller one, that adaptation.
So yeah. Gene factor also, because, you know, when we studied the brain, like where we were talking about hippocampus, we were talking about the cortex, we were talking about a lot of technical brain terms. So what I understood with that is sometimes if we don't have the right connection in our, if we don't get the information to our cortex, then hippocampus have difficulty to consolidate the information. So if the child has a problem with understanding that this is how it has to be sharpened, or this is a pencil, it has to be used like this, if he's not getting the right if he's getting the information in the cortex, and if hippocampus is not consolidating it, then he will never be able to understand. It will never become a memory to him, you know, this is what the role of a pencil and a sharpener is. So it could be a genetic factor also, we never know.
True, but
in IQ, different levels like mild, moderate, severe, profound. Some are trainable, some can be taught. So it depends upon what the IQ level is. So maybe if the child is told, okay, whenever you see a pencil, if it is not sharpened, just sharpen it. It can be trained. So that is why people who have some intellectual disability, we train them on automatic task where you don't really have to think. Where just a eye-hand coordination or something, weaving or something which is not very creative, because they say all creative people are intelligent. So that's something being proven. Not all intelligent people are creative, but people who are in the lower level of the intelligence, they can be trained. A lot of them can be trained for activities of daily living and adaptive behaviors. But as you said, Ritika, if it is a severe or profound case, they can be only managed, and maybe they will need a lot more help. And some of these tasks they will never do.
Yeah,
Shalini,
the best way.
What do you do, Shalini? I'm little curious.
I'm a special educator. I work with children with learning difficulties.
Yeah, in fact, you should take that chapter, yeah, Shalini, on learning. I think it's in lifespan psychology, right?
We did it already, Seema. Now, when we revise, maybe we will do it together.
Yeah, I think the best way, or the concluding statement for this debate could be any theory or any concept that you take, be it intelligence or creativity or anything that you take, has to be explained in three dimensions. Those are bio, psycho, social. Ritika concentrated on the biological aspect, the physical biological aspect. We've discussed the psychosocial aspect, and Shalini and Seema, Prahash, they also added the social aspect. I think any part or any concept should, at least in psychology, should be explained in biopsychosocial components. That's the best way to understand anything. If not, it's just debatable concepts.
Yeah, even when you talk about psychology, there could be a possibility that the child in his home must be seeing her father or mother, when they use pencil, they never sharpen it, or they take the new one.
Yeah.
So that could be one of the reason that he decided to, not to sharpen it and just ignore that pencil and take a new one. You never know what children are learning at home or,
No, no, no.
even at
Kritika,
neighborhood.
no, 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 no. We are talking about kids who, even if you teach them how to do this process over and over, still they will not.
What I'm saying, you don't know. Children are like, it's very difficult to even teach them. If they don't want to learn, they will not learn.
It's not just children, it's adults as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
shall we play Kahoot? Shall we conclude this?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just give the psychological part.
Yeah, I understood.
To give it a full, bio, psycho, social stuff.
Yes.
Actually, Soundarya is doing the teacher role now. Teaching, discussion.